Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Anil Joshi. Welcome you to my series that is Learn Basics of Radiology with Dr. Anil Joshi. Today's lecture topic is on mammography. There are different lectures on mammography, out of which today's lecture is benign pathologies. The lecture is going to be delivered by myself. So I am Dr. Anil Joshi. Let's go first to the disclaimers, disclosures and acknowledgement. Most of the material which we are going to show in this is our own. However, certain part of it or certain topics, certain matter is taken from the net, which is royalty free and without any financial encumbrances. So with these disclosures, we also request that whatever we are information giving is meant for the knowledge and not meant for any medical legal purpose or for quoting anywhere. With this brief, we will go to the introduction. Now this topic today is mammography, diseases detected by mammography, what is going to be spectrums, what are going to be the disease processes, what is going to be benign, what is malignant, we will be seeing today. So it's a spectrum of benign and malignant diseases. Benign breast conditions are common among women between the age group of 15 to 25 years of age. It accounts to 80% of the clinical presentation related to the breast. So benign conditions are 80% of the total breast diseases. Then benign tumors represent a hyperplastic or proliferative process in a single terminal ductal unit. So that is the pathogenesis we should keep in mind, and that is how the images are interpreted. The cause of it, etiologies are not known. Now 10% of it disappears spontaneously, needs no treatment except we have to watch for the malignant changes in it, or if it turns out to be malignant, which was thought to be initially benign. Now, most of them stop growing after the age of menopause and after they reach 2 to 3 centimeters of size. If present in post-menopausal woman, coarse calcification develops in it. That is one of a part of spontaneous healing. Conversely, go rapidly during pregnancy. So in pregnancy, benign lesions grows rapidly. Then HRT or immunosuppression treatment, that is multiple or growing fibroadenomas, are related to Epstein-Barr virus infections. So with this brief introduction, let's go to the disease proper. Now benign diseases, how they are classified are, most of them are cystic, sebaceous cyst, fibroadenomas, lipomas, hamartomas and intramammary lymph nodes. Now let's see their mammographic and ultrasound characteristics. Now cyst, they are circular or oval, low density masses with smooth margins, and on ultrasound, well-defined, good shaped, well-shaped, well-defined lesions without internal echoes and with posterior echoastic enhancement. If we are finding echogenicity within the cyst fluid, then we have to think of the differential diagnosis. Now sebaceous cyst, the cyst-like masses under the skin on mammography, and on sonography a mass lying entirely within the skin surrounded by a hyperechoic band, that is cross sign in the skin. Then fibroadenomas, well defined or lobulated masses which can contain popcorn like calcification, and on ultrasound an isoechoic mass with wider than taller orientation and distal acoustic enhancement are the characteristic. How the lipomas appear on mammography, they have got fat density with a thin capsule, and we identify them with a mass effect. Now we'll see it when we'll be going to the film reading session. Sonographically, they are isoechoic or mildly hyperechoic masses. The hamartomas are well defined heterogeneous masses with halo signs and fat density. Ultrasound, they are well defined masses with the same echo texture than the mammary glands. Then intramammary lymph nodes are well limited low density masses with fatty hilum. Now we will have seen it, or we will be seeing a lymph node characteristic which are potentially dangerous and which can be left alone. Then on ultrasound, they are hypoechoic nodules with an echogenic hilum. Now let's go further. How you differentiate with the shape. Now benign will have round or oval shape. Then they will have a lobulation, 3 or fewer lobulations. Malignant will have irregular, more than 3 lobulations. Then margins, benign, well circumscribed, well defined. Malignant are spiculated or angular microcalcifications. Then orientation, benign are wider than taller. Long axis parallel to the skin, and malignant are taller than wide with long axis perpendicular to the skin. Echo texture, the benign will have homogeneous while the malignant will have heterogeneous. Echo pattern is markedly hypoechoic in benign versus is purely and intensely hyperechoic or mixed echogenic in malignancy. Now posterior acoustic enhancement or shadowing is present in malignant while the enhancement is seen in benign lesions. Now let's consider individual pathologies, fibroadenomas. Now what are the variants of fibroadenomas? They can be juvenile fibroadenomas, then they can be myxoid fibroadenomas. It is an autosomal dominant neoplasm syndrome, that is skin mucosal lesions, myxomas and endocrinal disorders. Now what are the types? They can be soft, they can be hard, they can be giant, or they can be microscopically intracanalicular, mainly cellular tissues, and pericanalicular, mainly fibrous tissues. So that's the constituency of them. Now let's come to clinical features. They are penless swelling, smooth, firm, non-tender, well localized, then moves freely within the breast tissues. That is why they are called sometimes as the breast mouses. Then axillary lymph nodes not enlarged, or even if they are enlarged, there are characteristics which we are going to discuss somewhere else, and they are extensively covered their sonographic appearances, and we should be taken as the seriously, or we should go for a biopsy. Now what is the investigations performed in these lesions when clinically suspected are the mammography, FNSA, USG, that is mammosonography. It is usually with the Doppler and with high frequency probe. Then what is the treatment? Is excision of the lump. Then in pericanalicular type, periareolar excision is done. Then intracanalicular type, there is submammary excision is done. This is as far as surgical treatment part is concerned. Now further going, fibroadenomas are benign tumors composed of stromal and epithelial elements and are commonly seen in young women below the age of 30 years, that is a premenopausal age. Either breast may be affected. Multiple successive tumors may develop in the same or contralateral breast. Now, what is pathophysiology? Fibroadenomas are benign tumors that present a hyperplastic or proliferative process in a single terminal duct unit developed due to aberrations of normal development. The cause is unknown. Approximately 10% of the fibroadenomas disappear each year, and most of them stop growing after achieving a size of 2 to 3 centimeters. If fibroadenomas develop in a postmenopausal woman, it will show coarse calcification. Tumors may grow rapidly during pregnancy because they are hormone dependent, and fibroadenoma variant includes juvenile fibroadenomas. This is just a revision which we are making, which we have seen also in the tabular forms. Now going further, the pericanalicular tumor forms a firm discrete mass which is freely mobile in the breast. Hence the name is called a breast mouse. The intracanalicular tumors tends to be softer than gross and such size that there is necrosis of the overlying skin. These are also called as xerostic disease or cystosarcoma, phylloids, or giant fibroadenomas, which we are going to discuss subsequently. Now, pathologically has been considered as a simple hyperplasia of the epithelial or connective tissues element and differs from neoplasm of the breast, in which the epithelial or mesenchymal components grow spontaneously. Now let us recollect the diagnosis. This is called as the triple assessment. What is a triple assessment? Is a history and clinical examination, which we have already seen. Second is the imaging portion, which we are seeing or which we have partially seen. It is the ultrasound and mammography. And the third is pathogenesis, that is FNAC, core biopsy and open biopsy. This is popularly called as the triple assessment for the diagnosis of fibroadenomas. Now these are images of fibroadenomas. First analyze them. See the calcification, see the outline, see the sonographic appearance, and now you go to the diagnosis. There are coarse calcification, no surrounding infiltration, well circumcised distinct oval mass or hypodense lesion with microlobulation. Sonographically, there is diffuse hypoechogenicity and thin echogenic rim suggestive of a pseudocapsule. Now this appearance is characteristic and you must keep in mind. We'll see a couple of such images. First, see the image, see the calcifications, see the lesion, identify them, see the borders, and see now the sonographic appearances and the remaining things. We have to see for the mass outline, mass consistency, calcification, surrounding infiltration, nipple retraction, skill changes, etc. Now here also you are seeing a well-defined lesion which is fairly homogeneous in echogenicity. There is a pseudo-wall formation, that is a pseudocapsule, what we popularly call. You can see this in the mammography also, and then you see the findings listed. Now with this we'll go to the another topic, that is cystosarcoma, that is the phylloids. Now cystosarcoma phylloids, that is also called as CSP, which will be short form. Then CSP is a rare, predominantly benign tumor exclusively occurring in the female breast. Its name is derived from the Greek word sarcomas, meaning fleshy tumors, and phyllo, meaning leaf. Grossly, the tumor is of large size. Then malignant sarcoma simulate a leaf-like appearance in the section and displays epithelial cyst-like spaces histologically, hence the name has come. However, it's a benign lesion, but sometimes it is known to recur. Because most of the tumors are benign, the name may be misleading. Therefore, favored terminology is phylloids rather than cystosarcoma phylloids. So best is to call them as phylloid, which is technically a correct word. Now, clinical causes of breast enlargement. All the breast enlargement clinically suspected, you should try to analyze and find out what is the cause of it. Now, if it is benign hypertrophy, it is usually bilateral. Then if it is one side, then you think of giant fibroadenomas, then phylloid tumors, then the sarcomas, then the colloid carcinomas, then filarial elephantiasis are the few to enumerate. So these are the causes you must keep in mind when you are seeing any case of breast enlargement. Now, phylloid tumor is the most commonly encountered non-epithelial neoplasm of the breast and occur only in the female breast. So it has a sharply discriminated smooth texture and is typically freely mobile, and it is relatively large tumor and the average size is more than 5 cm. However, lesions more than 30 cm in size have also been reported. So it's one of the largest tumor and it can cause a massive enlargement of the affected breast. In most of the cases, a wide local excision is done with a rim of normal tissues. If the tumor or breast ratio is sufficiently high to produce a satisfactory cosmetic results, by segmental excision may also be done, that is the breast conservative surgery. It depends of course on what is the percentage of the tumor cells and what is the percentage of the normal breast tissues. A total mastectomy with or without reconstruction is an alternative, and more radical procedures generally are not warranted in this, since basically it's a benign but sometimes it has got tendency to recur. Then axillary lymph node dissection is performed only if clinically suspected or if the clinicians suspect that there are the chances of malignancies. However, usually all of these nodes are reactive and do not contain malignant cell if the mass turns out to be a phylloid. We'll see the cases, try to analyze their well-defined large lesion, see how much volume of breast they occupy, then their outlines are smooth, there are not much calcifications, and radiolucent halo may or may not be seen. How they look on the ultrasound is these lesions. You can see both the things, how they are on mammography and how they are on ultrasound. So they are large, round, oval, lobulated, well circumscribed lesions with smooth margins and a radiolucent halo that may or may not be present. Sonographically, there are solid masses containing few cystic spaces or areas of degeneration. You can see in these also, and there is acoustic enhancement posteriorly. So similarly, try to analyze these couple of more cases. Now let's go to the next, that is fibrocystic diseases of the breast. Now fibrocystic disease of the breast, let's go further. This is the most common lesion of the female breast. Then cystic lobular hyperplasia or fibrocystic disease of the breast are the two common acceptable descriptions. Then cystic hyperplasia is a variant of normal cystic changes in the breast that occurs with the menstruation. This hyperplasia usually present bilaterally in the upper quadrant of the breast and is most painful in the premenstrual period. So most of the time a typical history is obtained, that is a cyclic pain. This we have already discussed in detail when we discussed clinical presentation, and in that the pain was the subheadings. Now most benign conditions, the incidence varying related to age. And then as far as menstruating year is concerned, 20% is around 20 years, then 30 to 50% in the premenopausal age. So in menstruating year you get 20% of the disease and 30 to 50% in premenopausal years. So this is the age differentiation as far as benign conditions are concerned. Then mammary hyperplasia, cystic diseases, cyclic mastopathy, then cystic hyperplasia are synonymous to the same word and can be used in either way. And then what is the pathophysiology of fibrocystic diseases? Now estrogen and progesterone plays a major role. Now estrogen dominance over progesterone is considered causative. So when estrogen predominates over progesterone, the disease is expected to be a fibrocystic disease. Now serum level of estrogens are usually high in this patient, then luteal phase is shortened, then progesterone level decreases to 1/3 of the normal, and a woman with progesterone deficiency carry a 5-fold risk of premenopausal breast cancer. Then corpus luteal deficiency and ovulation in 70% of the case patients. Then patients with premenstrual tension syndrome more likely to develop this disease or this group of complaints, pathologies. Now what is the pathology of fibrocystic disease? The prolactin levels are increased to 1/3 in women with fibrocystic disease of the breast, probably due to the estrogen dominance in pituitary. Then thyroid suboptimal levels, sensitization mammary epithelium to prolactin stimulations, and the methyl exanthiones. It increased intake of the coffee, tea, cold drinks, chocolate is associated with development of fibrocystic disease of the breast according to certain studies. Now estrogen stimulation proliferation of the connective tissue and epithelial polymorphism of the fibrocystic disease is documented by fibrosis, cystic formation, epithelial proliferation, and lobular alveolar hypertrophy. Then what is the clinical course? The fibrocystic disease of the breast represents a clinical problem in approximately 30% of the patients, then commonly seen in women with menstrual abnormalities, then nulliparous women, then patients with history of spontaneous abortions, then non-users of the oral contraceptives, and women with early menarche and late menopause. Early fibrocystic manifestation may occur in between the age of 20 to 25 years, but most of the patients are, that is 70 to 75% patients are in their mid-30s or 40s. So clinically, 3 phases of fibrocystic disease can be recognized. Phase 1 is a moderate stromal fibrosis, beginning hardness of the breast tissues and premenopausal breast tenderness. Phase number 2 are progressive fibrosis, leading to increased hardening and tenderness, cyst formation and moderate nodularity. And phase 3 is pronounced fibrosis and tenderness, that is microcyst formation. These are the stages. Now what are the signs and symptoms? Now fibrocystic disease has a history of many months or several years. Then fibrocystic disease is a rare in ovulating women, multiparous women, and patients using oral contraceptives. Then breast pain, that is mastrodynia or the breast pain, and tenderness is observed in majority of the patients, 40 to 60% of the patient. These are associated with irregular menses, dysmenorrhea, menorrhagia, or ovarian cyst. So these are the associated findings. Then nipple retraction. In fibrocystic disease, there can be nipple retraction. In 1/3 of the patients with fibrocystic disease of the breast, discharge is spontaneous or secretions can be expelled from the nipple. The cytological features may include amorphous material, that is a fat or proteins, ductal cells, erythrocytes, and or foam cells. The fluid is straw yellow, greenish or bluish in 2 to 3% of the carcinoma is diagnosed. So it's essential that patients should undergo the examination of this fluid, so also mammography and sonography simultaneously. The bloody nipple secretions, when present, 50 to 60% is due to the intraductal proliferative, that is papillomas, and 30 to 40% due to carcinomas. So this statistic has to be kept in mind, and a detailed study is required to evaluate them. Then what is the role of mammography? Patients with early fibrocystic change show small areas of increased density on the mammographic film. These are irregular and scattered with varying degree of density as a disease progresses. Dark areas may occur along with whitish gray areas, and microcalcification may also become prominent. This calcification can be single or multiple, small flecks, lobulated or intraductal or periductal stromas, or in entire lobules. Now what is ultrasound findings? Particularly useful in defining solid from cystic breast masses. Ultrasound of the cystic mass characteristically defines a mass with a uniform outer margin, demonstrating no asymmetry or unusual thickness of the wall. The central part of the mass show no echoes, and there is posterior wall enhancement. These are the characteristics of the ultrasound. Now needle aspiration biopsy, indicated in patients with breast masses, a lump-like structure, a hard dense area, or any abnormal tissue areas as defined by clinical examination, mammography, or by USG. In patients at a high risk of breast cancer, needle aspiration should be performed when a slightest suspicion arises. In women with fibrocystic diseases, a ductal epithelium consists of cohesive cells with a scanty rim of cytoplasm and round or oval small slightly hyperchromatic nuclei, and the connective tissues, that is fibrous tissue, is usually predominant. Then coming to the medical, the goal is to stop progression, to relieve pain, to reverse changes, soften breast tissues. Now, indicated when the fibrocystic disease of the breast not responding or not increasing in size, then if there is no nipple discharge, then if there is no psychological effect, the medical treatment suffices. So these are the first group where the medical treatment is given. Now when the surgical treatment is given, that is the intervention indicated when the fibrocystic disease of the breast increasing in size. If it starts progressing, no need for go for surgery. Then serous or serogenious biopsy blood discharge occurs, then we have to think of the malignancy. So if the discharge contained blood cells, we have to think seriously about the cytology. Now patients are psychologically disturbed, then also we have to get rid of it. Now here we will be showing you certain cases. We will find a well circumscribed mass is seen on the sonography with heterogeneous and dense lobulated parenchyma, sonographically dominant fibroglandular tissues not forming a mass, that is a small cyst may be seen, but it's not a mass with surrounding tissues. Here also we are seeing same circumscribed mass. Then you can also see the congestive changes in the surrounding breast tissues. Then there may be fibrosis. If the fibrosis is there, that means the process is long standing. Infection is one of the cause in it, and if infection occurs, it can be acute or chronic. Once the infection occurs, they become a palpable, and sometimes a discharge may contain blood if it get infected. Infection can be in the cyst, that is echogenicity will occur, or there can be in the surrounding tissues. If it occurs in the surrounding tissues, we'll get a circumscribed mass on sonography, that's also on palpation. Then it will be heterogeneous, dense, lobulated, and prominent fibroglandular tissues will be seen. Small cyst may be seen. Now let's come to lipoma. Lipoma is usually a asymptomatic finding. A patient may feel a lump, a clinician may feel a lump. Sonographically, they may be detected, or there may be sometime a problem in detecting them. So, in lipoma, patients are asymptomatic. Patient present with painless lump with a soft and mobile swelling. There will be no skin changes. In that case, you think of the lipoma. But main diagnosis will be made on either mammography or combination of mammography and sonography. On mammography, there are radiolucent masses with no calcification. Fat necrosis will be there. Then calcification may change the sonographic appearance, but the calcifications are not common, and detection may be easy in dense breast. Now coming to sonomammography. Sonography will be a round lesion, isodense or slightly echogenic to the surrounding tissues. Rarely these are hypoechoic, and they can be differentiated between hematomas by ultrasound and mammography very easily, and even compressibility of the lesion can be demonstrated on ultrasound. Now these are the examples. We have got both. We have got sonography also, and we have got a mammography also. Here the axillary lymph nodes are present, but they do not show a characteristic of the malignant changes. Now we can see here a radiolucent with no calcification. A lesion is there, but there is no calcification. Now these are slightly hyperechoic on ultrasound. Further, more cases of lipoma already described. They are isodense. Now a radiolucent with no calcification. These are easy to detect in dense breast sonographically. Mammographically, they may be seen as a mass effect, but if sonography is performed, they can be found out or they can be diagnosed easily. These are isoechoic or hypodense. Now let us come to the next topic is in benign lesion, nipple retraction. Nipple retraction can be unilateral or bilateral. Now, for this finding, history and clinical examination is essential and a technologist must take a record of it, because if the mammogram is technically taken, the nipple may not be seen as a retractile and there may be interpretation mistakes by a radiologist. So a radiographer must make note of it. The detailed history may or may not be available from patient. It may be incidental finding for them also, but it has to be noted. Usually it's a benign process taking place over a long period. It may be unilateral or bilateral. Unilateral develops rapidly. Any nipple retraction developing rapidly unilaterally has to be taken seriously and more likely to be malignant. So detailed investigations are required. Now what are the causes? Causes are mammary duct ectasia, post-surgical scarring, fat necrosis, fibrocystic changes, and Mondor disease. That is an extremely uncommon condition, but it's there. Now, what are the radiological features? Spot film compression view of the nipple are required in profile to determine the presence of a retroareolar mass. So, it is extremely important. A technologist should be aware that nipple retraction is there. He should also be aware that if it is unilateral or bilateral, acutely, if it is developing acutely, if it is unilateral, then retroareolar mass or evaluation is extremely important. Then craniocaudal and lateral spot film magnification views, or they can be seen on the CR where we can detail see them, we can put the filters and we can see the microcalcification more easily. Now here we are seeing the cases. There are multiple cases. Now if you are finding nipple retraction with retroareolar abnormalities, like in this case patient, you will have to go for malignancy. So not all the time nipple retraction or inversion should be taken lightly. Even though the changes are bilateral, you will have to go to pathology of any single side, and that is possible. You have to go in more detail. You have to evaluate this patient more carefully. Now here we are seeing bilateral nipple retraction, no evidence of retroareolar abnormality, and usually it's a benign process. So nothing much to be done except a close follow-up and reassurance to the patient and to follow the regime of mammography. Now here what we are saying, bilateral nipple retraction, no retroareolar abnormalities, usually it's a benign process. Again, bilateral changes, you are seeing both sides nipple retraction is there. Then there is no retroareolar abnormality. It's a usually benign process. We have seen multiple benign pathologies of the breast. We have seen which needs to be seriously investigated, which needs to be biopsied, and which needs a more attention. With the end of all these things, we are coming to the part of lecture which covers different diseases of mammography, different techniques of mammography. Today's topic was a benign lesion. So with this we are coming to end of a small topic of the benign diseases of the breast. I thank you for giving me your valuable time. Please note, radiology it's not a race, it's a process. Be a part of this and enjoy the feast of knowledge. I am Dr. Anil Doshi, logging off till we meet again. Please see the appearances. Please examine the patient. Clinical examination has got maximum importance. Clinical importance is important. Then your technologist should also have a proper instruction. They should also give you information regarding what other problem patient has got. In addition to that, you should analyze the disease patterns, and after that, with more and more experiences, you can give more and more accurate diagnosis, because the gray zone of benign and malignancy is extremely important as far as patient future management is concerned. So be more experienced, give your best to the patient, and help the team which is trying to eradicate breast cancer from this world. Thank you again. Take care.